the Digital Application Datasets Integration Network project to replace the electronic application forms. This is the first such meeting that we're doing. It's proven quite popular, so some participants have joined through WebEx. However, everyone is able to access the live stream of this via the EMA's YouTube channel. A recording of this meeting will also be made available afterwards. I'm Joris Wiemer, Change Management Lead here at EMA, and have the privilege of chairing this meeting and talking you through some of the key points with the other attendees, panelists. Now, let me just drag this over for a second. You've had my welcome. We will be talking about the DADI roadmap and objectives in the framework of regulatory business optimization. That'll be with Hilmar Hamann, our head of information management division at EMA. Melanie Loveday was unfortunately not able to join us today, so her content will also be covered by product owner Cristina Pusari. The new changes to the electronic application form tools will also be presented by Cristina, after which Noel Diamant, the other product co-owner from Unicom and the Austrian Medicines Agency, will be demonstrating the new interface as it currently stands. Following that, we will have Cristina Papato, the project's change manager, facilitating the Q&A session, after which I will close. We have a lot of participants and only 10 minutes for Q&A. So you can imagine that we will not get to all questions. So we will find a mechanism to indeed respond or indeed adequately answer and provide the information that comes through the different questions. This session is being live streamed. It is also being recorded, just repeating that, on the EMA corporate website. At certain points through the session, actually throughout the session, participants will be able to ask questions or give their input via Slido. That's an audience interaction tool, slido.com. And on the next slide, we'll show you how to indeed get to Slido. Interaction via Slido is voluntary. You may opt to remain anonymous. However, you're also very welcome indeed to provide your name to your question. If you choose to use Slido, you consent to the processing of your personal data, as explained in the EMA data privacy statement for Slido, which was also included in the announcement for this event. You can join Slido either by going to slido.com on your laptop and putting in that hash code 128592, or indeed by taking your mobile phone and scanning that QR code. In Slido, you'll be able to ask questions, or another important feature, because there's a lot of us, if you feel somebody else has asked a question that is very much like your question and you really like to get it answered, you can also upvote that question. We will certainly look at the number of votes a particular question has gotten to try and see indeed which questions we can answer during the 10-minute Q&A. Questions will be shown on screen after moderation and managed live during the Q&A session by Cristina Papato. Then it is my pleasure to introduce Hilmar Hamann, head of the Information Management Division of EMA, to talk a little bit about the DADI roadmap and objectives in the framework of regulatory business optimization, and as mentioned, with Cristina Pusari covering the program manager Melanie Loveday's content. Over to you, Hilmar.
Thank you, Joris. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here today and really talk about this exciting initiative, the DADI project, the Digital Application Dataset Integration. So if we could go to the next slide, I would like to give a little bit of context for the initiative, why it was started, why now, and really what are the drivers for the digital application data set. So first of all, I think we have all come a long way in terms of the preparation and the implementation of ISO IDMP, and then also creating the SPOR data foundation. Also, FHIR has matured quite a bit over the years, and I think we're now at a point where we can really leverage these international standards a lot more to exchange information in a much more efficient way. So, so looking at what's really driving this and why now. So the first thing is really that the current technology platform we're using for the electronic application forms is at end of life. So it is really a good time for us to think about a world beyond the PDF forms. Another driver is and was the Unicom project that I think most of you will be aware of, that's really focused on fostering the implementation of ISO IDMP and driving the adoption of SPOR. And there's a specific works package within Unicom that's really focusing on modernizing the electronic application form. And there's 7 NCAs involved, many other experts. And so we really felt like that we should build on that momentum here. And as EMA, because we were not part of Unicom, we wanted to contribute by providing a modern, user-friendly technology platform that can easily be integrated with, first of all, the EMA regulatory tracking systems, but also the NCA systems. And the other piece is really strategically, it's also important to look at how we would digitize the inbound data flows, and specifically in support of what we call the regulatory business optimization, because this is the effort that EMA has been focusing on for quite some time, and really starting from the inbound data flows really helps us a lot and enables that modernization of regulatory procedures and the management of it. And ultimately moving from the PDF-based form to a structured data set really allows us to eliminate the manual processing of forms and really promotes the reuse of data. So what you see on this second slide is really the objective, right? So the objective is to move to a data-centric target operating model where industry can use the DADI platform to submit medicinal product data in a structured way, so it is instantly available in the regulatory tracking systems. And here, that's what you see in the middle. The data can be assessed, can be validated without having to manually copy and paste the information. And then following the completion of the regulatory procedure, the data can then be stored in the product management system for reuse in future regulatory submissions or in other regulatory activities. And I think what's really powerful about this is that we create this cyclic process where industry, NCAs, and also the EMA continuously work together on improving the data quality. And that's really, I think, the powerful thing, the reuse of data, the continuous review of the data, and continuously improving data quality. So with this, I would like to pass it to my colleague, Christina Pusari. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilmar. So as mentioned by Joris, I will be presenting a couple of slides that are actually slides of my colleague Melanie, who is our project manager. Unfortunately, Melanie was unable to join us today. So you'll get to listen to me for a little bit longer. Just trying to move to the next slide there. So first, I will give you a quick introduction of the DADI project. So the DADI project is a network project that is led by the European Medicines Agency, and it will support both centralized procedure and the nationally authorized products. And the project is being worked on together with the national competent authorities, hence why we're calling it a network project. And the main aim of the project is to replace the forms to be used for the key EU procedures, so including the centralized procedure and the non-centralized procedure managed by the NCAs. And of course, both the EMA and NCAs are involved in this project to ensure that the results can fulfill the expectations and the requirements of the whole network. And in this project, we have 2 product owners, which is perhaps slightly unusual, but because in the view of this very wide scope and being a network project, it was felt that it's best to share this task between the EMA and NCAs. And I'm the EMA representative in collaboration with the network product owner, Noel Diamant, and the network part is funded by the Unicom project. The DADI project has also established a group representing subject matter experts in order to ensure that all user requirements are heard. So we have colleagues from EMA, the NCAs, and industry joining in this group that meets on regular basis, but also on ad hoc basis when needed. So if we look at a little bit of the objectives of this project, so of course the main objective is to replace the current PDF format EAFs, and we will do that for all the current EAFs. So that's the marketing authorization applications, variations, and renewals for both human and veterinary submissions. And we will replace these with a web-based user interface for the applicants. This new web-based user interface will be compatible with the ISO IDMP and FHIR standards, and of course the EU implementation guide for human medicines. We will provide a structured data format which is based on the FHIR standard, which can be imported into the SPOR PMS, which is the Product Management Services. And this data can then be reused in other submission-related tasks to support the PMS target operating model. And of course, as a result, we will also provide a human readable PDF output, which is in line with the notice to applicants requirements. And just to give a little bit context, we are using out-of-the-box solution for the user interface. So we're using Microsoft Power Apps for the user interface for the applicants. And if we look at a little bit of the DADI roadmap, what we have done so far, so since the project has started, the deliverables have so far been mainly setting up the infrastructure to support all the forms. So we have created a landing page, we've created a form structure, we've been building on the data model, and of course working on the solution design. So far we have developed an initial version of the variation application form for human medicinal products, and my colleague Noel will be giving you a demonstration of our work so far later on today. And of course, we've been progressing with the development of the human readable PDF output as well as a part of the project. So this year in 22, we'll be focusing on the fine tuning and testing the form for variations for human medicinal products. We will, of course, need to put a maintenance support in place. So once we go live, we need to ensure that we can keep on updating and supporting users. We're also performing access management, security checks, and of course, very importantly, deploying into production. We work in very, very close collaboration with the SPOR PMS team to establish an approach to data cleansing, which is an important part of the project, because we will be using structured data from PMS. So of course, in order to ensure that the data is of best quality and fills the requirements, we'll have to work together on this aspect. And of course, eventually there will be the launch of the variations form and support during a transitional period when we change from the PDF to these web-based forms. And of course, we will need to start preparing the work for the next forms, which will be the initial MAA forms and the renewal form. And then in future, we'll, of course, then start working towards the replacement of those initial MAA forms for both human and veterinary, and the variations for the veterinary. Please don't read anything into the particular order of those future forms mentioned here. We'll have to very carefully look at which order we will start the work next. We will also, as I mentioned, will support the data cleansing exercise with PMS. We'll be supporting releases of the new versions of the forms. We're currently looking into a regular release schedule. And of course, once we go live with the initial version of this new web-based variation form, we anticipate that after approximately 3 months, there would be another version published with any findings that that may be found by the users during that initial period will be addressed in that release. And of course, we will also very importantly explore further machine-to-machine solutions in order to help automation for both national competent authorities and for industry. And then, of course, the question on everyone's lips tends to be the timelines for the project. So this is a timeline that we have been working together with the PMS, because we're of course we have dependencies on different projects. So as you can see, we have started the development already in Q2 21, and the development is continuing as we speak. We're also currently testing of the technical functions by a small group of friendly users from our subject matter expert group. So this is what we call a limited UAT, and you may have heard the word alpha UAT as well. We have planned for another more production quality UAT using production quality data as well for later this year, and participants for that UAT will be selected from the stakeholder representatives. So more information will be published in due time with regards to the UAT, and we'll also look at how we can enable as many participants in the UAT without making it too extensive, so that we can manage the feedback from that UAT. Additionally, of course, there will be the release of the draft fire specification, and very soon afterwards, there will be a release of the final fire specification. As you can see in this slide, we are indicating a window for the go live at the moment, as we will need to look at the results from the UATs in order to be able to lock a date for the go live. And currently we are looking at a minimum of 12 months transitional period from the PDF forms into the web-based forms. So this will mean a parallel use of the old and the new variations form. We've also added here a window for the data cleansing. The exact timing when this will start and finish will be confirmed as all the other dates. But during this period of time, there will be a call for industry to correct and complete the product data in PMS. And at a point of time, the new variations web form will be the only form that can be used for these type of variations for human procedures, for both centralized procedure and for national procedures. And of course, in parallel with this go live and testing, the preparatory work for the development of the next forms will start. So we will now move into the next section on the main changes as a result of these new EAFs. And I'll be presenting this as my own slides. So what are the key changes that DADI project will bring us. So of course, the current PDF forms that most of you know very well, they are interactive forms, but they have a lot of business rules and logic built into them, as well as the XML. These are now quite outdated in technology, and they are a bit clunky and very slow to open, not only on the industry side to fill in, but also on the regulator side to open and view. So these forms will be replaced by a modern web-based input form for the applicants. And there will be, of course, the familiar human-readable PDF output and a new machine-readable XML for digital processing using the FHIR data exchange. Currently in the forms, we have very limited use of structured data. We are using OMS and RMS and SMS from SPOR, but now with the DADI forms, it will enable us use of IDMP and FHIR compliant structured data, which can be used and reused to populate the forms. And they, of course, also guarantee the two-way exchange of data between the application forms and the PMS. So you're using the data from PMS, and then by using the DADI form, we can push this updated data back into the PMS, which will have a huge benefit with regards to the data quality. And of course, currently with the PDFs is quite manual, labor-intensive procedure management. So with the DADI forms, we will enable a streamlined and simplified processes with automated data imports into the systems, which will of course facilitate procedure handling by the regulators. So what the DADI will and will not change. So as mentioned, the PDF format electronic application forms for all procedure types will go away. We'll do this work for human and veterinary forms and for centrally authorized products and nationally authorized products. However, maybe even more importantly, we should look at what DADI will not change, at least on the short term. So there will still be a PDF output format. Instead of the current PDF as it's today with all its business rules, in future there will be a PDF rendition which should open much faster, but that PDF rendition will contain that FHIR XML that can then easily be used to extract the structured data and used to fill the systems of the regulators. So the process, how the applications are submitted will not change. So basically, as an applicant, you will go into the web-based user interface, you will fill in the form, you will export a PDF rendition, and you will include that PDF rendition inside your ECTD or VNIS package, and you will continue submitting that package as you do today via the eSubmission gateway or via SES. So the submission process will not change, and how the form is included in the application package will not change. And then if we look at what are the kind of gains and pains that we foresee in the short term and in the long term for industry. On the short term, there will be a usability improvement of the forms, so less time waiting for the lists to load. The data is pre-populated from EMA systems, so hopefully filling in the forms will become slightly easier. And on the long term, of course, we will have streamlined application interface. We're using predictable, standardized data, which means that there will be less errors. This, of course, can then lead into faster processing of the applications. And in future, we will have a machine-to-machine solutions based on FHIR that can facilitate the application authoring process. Then, unfortunately, of course, there are some pains when we go through such a change. So, on the short term, we're looking at, of course, there will be different tools. So you may use the PDF forms for certain types of applications, and you'll in parallel have the new DADI user interface for the variation forms. So there will be different tools for different applications until we can fully retire the PDF-based forms. And of course, there will be an effort to cleanse and complete data for submissions in PMS. And if we then look at the long-term pain, hopefully it's not that bad once we all get used to it. But initially, of course, this requires that you will have to register and handle all the access management to the forms within the EMA portal, within the EMA Access Management portal, because of course, when you are selecting products from PMS, instead of typing the product details in a PDF form like you do today, we'll have to ensure that you can only see your own data. We don't want to be exposing other applicants' data to wrong people. And of course, there will also be more details that need to be filled in the application forms than there is today, but this is to support procedure management. And then if we look at the pains and gains for the regulators. So for the regulators, there will be enabling more efficient processing, which will reduce errors and discrepancies. There will be easier systems interoperability and data sharing among the regulators. And of course, we're ensuring standardized data entry, making validating the forms easier. And of course, this leads into easier processing and transmitting and reuse of the forms. The regulators will have to go through some pains as well. So obviously, we'll all need to adapt our IT systems to the new standards. And we'll have to perhaps use more resources while we're looking at the different tools until all the forms have been transitioned. And of course, only the full benefits of these forms can be reached once PMS data has been fully cleansed. So just to summarize, of course, communication is very important, and we want to ensure that you stay fully informed on what's happening. So what can you expect to hear from us? So we are hoping to provide very regular communication on the progress and how you as an applicant or an NCA user can get ready. So our next steps are to publish an updated roadmap, and hopefully very soon afterwards, we will publish an updated Q&A document. So then this spring, there will be a user acceptance testing where we will select experts representing different stakeholder groups, and there will be industry and NCAs taking part in this further beta UAT that will start. We'll have regular webinars where we will show the how the project is moving along and how the features are being developed. And of course, we're also very much concentrating on preparing for training sessions and user guides during the transitional period, so that all the users feel comfortable and they know how to fill in the forms and what they need to do in order to submit to make the change as painless as possible. And I will now hand over to my colleague Noel to demonstrate this new user interface.
Well, you can take control.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Christina, for this wonderful introduction and overview. My name is Noel Diamond. I work with EMA for Unicom and the Austrian Medicines Agency. And I'm happy to be the co-product owner together with Christina on this little endeavor that we have. My task for today is to guide you through a demonstration of the new interface, where Christina has told you all the good parts and all the theory around it, while I've been trying to answer some questions that you have posed. I will now do one better and show you exactly how it looks like. Some of the questions that you have been asking, I will try to include in my demonstration to show them live. And with all live demonstrations, please wish me luck that the system will do this properly. We do have one slide, please, that I would like to show, Joris, where we give an overview of which chapters we are going to present. The idea is to do an easy, well, I want to say easy, I'm working with this every day, but to do a simple variation procedure today, a name change for an MRP product, to show how this will look like. And to do this, I will demonstrate how to select the product from PMS, how to select a scope from the variation classification, and what happens after these are selected. Because what we do now is we do calculate most of the procedural information, which is an improvement, and is one of the improvements Christina mentioned, where we do want to limit the possibilities for errors. Next, I will show you the structured and unstructured changes. So what you know today, it's called present and proposed. But what you don't know from today's EF is that the product itself will no longer have free text, but will have structured information according to IDMP. I will briefly show the integration with the EMA's orphan and pediatric system. And last, there will be some structured data I want to go in, not just for the name change, but I will also want to show some things for groupings and work sharings if time permits. We are right now more or less at 2/3, maybe a little bit after half of development. So we did one full pass of the system. It works from start to end. We can follow the process through. The next step is for the next couple of months, we will do usability improvements, add a couple of missed things, and last, we will include structured change information for compositions, for packages, and for manufacturers, which we don't have yet in the system. So I will start to share my screen and show you how this will look like. I do hope this resolution is fine. So I welcome you to the new EF portal. I just want to stress this part. This is really a system in development. We're showing this not at the end, but in the middle. So bear with me, a lot of things will get better, especially on usability. The first thing that you will probably see is I am signing in with an EMA account. This was one of the questions that you have. You do need to register with EMA. You do need to sign in because we are going to save the forms that you have already drafted. And as you can see, I've been drafting quite a lot of forms in the last few days. And this is the list where you can see we put a number here. You can put in a friendly name. You see, for now, we only have the variation forms for human, but at some point you will see initial marketing authorizations, you will see renewals, and you will see variation forms for veterinary. There is the concept called reference marketing authorization holder, which is the lead, the one that you are associated to. You do this by registering with EMA. And we will tell you who was the last modified user, because there is not just one user possible to work on this, but as we are working on an online platform, you can invite others to participate. In this case, you can see there are other people here, like my colleague Nina, or some friendly testers who have shared their application with me to look at it. You can see when it was modified, what's the status, because what we can do is we can finalize things, so we can move them to deactivate it or to complete it if you say you have submitted it. You're not directly submitting from the system. We are keeping the process as it is today. You will export it and you will enter it into your eCDD and submit it like this, but you can check that you have submitted it. For today, I will just create a new application. For now, all we have is the variation form for human, which will, this list will get larger over time. I do have several organizations I'm associated with. I will use a dummy organization for now because EMA doesn't actually hold medicinal products, which is important because you do need them if you want to change them. And as a friendly name, I can just put in whatever I want so I can remember the form for the next time I want to finish editing it. I don't have to finish everything today. I can save it and finish it tomorrow, in 6 months or a year time, whenever I want. I would just call it presentation Q1 webinar for now. Click on next, and as you can see, as you could see, I'm just going to previous here for a moment. The organization I have selected, I'm referenced to, the UT-Log1, it is an OMS organization. We did just create a dummy organization for OMS, but if you do have your own organization, it will pull up the information from there. So there is no need to actually specifying who the applicant is, because you just select from OMS and it will fill in the details. Now, by clicking next, it will create the submission and ask me if I want to add another applicant. I can now add a colleague if I want to. I'm gonna skip this part to show you what the form actually looks like. The form for now is split into 5 and sometimes 6 parts, depending on what you select. And we are starting with product selection, which is a bit of a change from today, because from today you would start with procedural information. We've turned this around because we want to calculate the procedural information. Product selection at the start, I don't have any product selected, but I click on Add Product. And what it does is it will guide me to the screen for PMS product selection. We are running a very small UAT right now with just 10 very friendly users who are going through a buggy system, but still giving us some feedback. One of the very valuable feedback we got is we're going to improve the user friendliness of this screen, because this is the first time you will be allowed to select products from PMS, and we want it to be a nice experience. What you can see here is that for now you have 2 tabs, the available products to your organizations and the all products tab. This is also one of the big changes. You do have to have products associated with your organization. So for example, I'm associated to an organization with a location 11, with one 21, with a 12, with the Medicines Agency itself, and so on. So I can be associated to many, many organizations. And if you look at the large pharmaceutical companies, they will be. And we will show the sum of all products of all of the locations of all organizations that you are associated with for you to select. And for now, I can just see I have 12 products in here, which is not too much, but this is the test data we are working with. Some of you might be familiar with the LOSA control. This is also the one we're using for the PMS fire showcases. But you could always click on the All Products tab. And for now, we are using, again, test migration data from PMS, of course, scrambled, because we can't work with the actual data. We do have to mask it. You will get a search, which is a Google-like search, where you can look for things like all products authorized in Ireland or that have an MAH in Ireland, or you can just write a name or anything else. You can combine these searches and it will filter the entire product list. For now, we have 2,000 CAP products and 3 MRP products just for testing. At some point, you will see 550,000 products here because this is the amount that we have in total in Europe. Today, I will be selecting LOSA Control, which is an MRP product from Ireland, not a real one. This is just really invented test data. And I will do a simple name change on this product. If I do select a product which is MRP, the system will know and will ask me for an MRP variation number. Now, the first thing that you can see here is by not having PDF technology, you do have these advantages that the system will already remember stuff for you. You don't have to type things again. If you have typed them already in an application before, be it your name, your contact person, or in this case, your MRP variation number, you can just select it from previously entered examples. I'm not going into too much detail of selecting a specific package because, again, this is an MRP product. All packages will be selected automatically. If it were a CUP product, I do have to go in and select which package or package product or package presentation, depending on how you call it, you want to select. Now I have this one product. And
Noel, pardon the interruption. Would it be possible to zoom in on your browser a little bit? Is that,
of course.
Yep.
Thank you for the comment. I hope this is all right now.
Much better for me. Yeah.
Brilliant. The next screen shows the type of changes as you have the chapter in the variation. It is a selection of the variation classification. We call them scopes. And as you know, they have up to six levels. This is an RMS list. Everybody who has filled in a variation is very well aware of. It's a very large list containing all possible changes you can do. And for us, it's the most important list because by selecting what you want to change in the background, we have mapped every one of them to a specific product area. So if you select an A6 here, which is a change in ATC code, the system will know this change of ATC code is mapped to the product area ATC, and in the background it is preparing the fields for you to change the actual fields of the ATC code. Now, if I were to, well, which I'm actually going to do now, is changing the name of the invented product, and I'm going to change the one for, it doesn't really matter, just centrally or national. It does matter if you actually do your variation. For the system itself, all of these codes are mapped to name change, so the system knows it has to show me a name change. Now it will ask me for the procedure type at this stage, where I can only select 1B because it is already restricted. This kind of name change will always be a 1B, as it is today. System also knows if there can be conditions or documentations to be supplied. You can either check them or you can put in a note if you don't have them. If you don't do either of it, this is one case where the system will stop you because this is a required field. For most other cases, we don't want to stop the user. Now, if there are things missing or validated incorrectly, you can always save and come back, even though you have invalid data. So we don't want to stop anybody, but if you do at the moment click save and continue, we will rename it to validate, then the system will actually do a validation and see if the required fields are entered. So now I will move on. This will validate correctly. It will give me a tick and mark it a little bit green, so I know this section is done. I can just jump around to the other sections if I want to. So this menu is also navigation. But for now, I'm going start to end. For procedural information, it realized I selected an MRP product. So the type of authorization is already MRP. I can't change this. Same goes for if it's single or grouping. I have selected exactly one scope, so it is a single. And if I were to select another product, it would check me work sharing. For procedure type, it also calculated this is a 1B variation. Now, this was important for us because when we asked regulators across Europe, the response was most errors on a variation will occur in one of these fields. So people are not sure what kind of procedure type, if it is really a single, if it is really a grouping, if it is a work sharing. This is where we want to help the applicant by filling these in as much as possible by system calculation. There are, of course, just a few minor things that we can't fill in automatically. Sometimes you really have to say if it's a work sharing or not. This is why you can override this button in some cases. For now, you can also say what kind of change you have, if it's an indication or pediatric, etc. change. The one thing you do have to enter here is the variation procedure number, because we don't know yet. Maybe in the very far future, where we have integration with CTS and I don't know what other system, we can actually fill this in, but we're not there yet. So we do as much as we can for now, but we do want to finish the project. Below this, you can see what kind of applicant is already selected, because again, you are logged in. We know who you are. We know who you're working for. So this is the applicant. There are other MEHs, but these are also known depending on what products you select. If you select the second product, we do know already the second MEH. What you do have to do is enter a phone number and an email address, because this information is not known in OMS. For a contact person, you can add several contact persons depending on the countries that you have. I will just, again, I have already entered a contact person once in my life, so the system will suggest which people they are. I can only select one here for Ireland, because I have only one product for Ireland, and I can say for who this person is working for. And in this case, this can be somebody who is authorized on behalf of the MEH or any CRO company or anybody you want to. I would just do a full OMS search. This part will get a little bit optimized as well. We are going to search OMS here, and also performance-wise, this will get a little bit faster. For now, this is just doing a full search on all OMS records with Ireland, and I can just select one of them. I will select one by random. It will pull up the OMS information and allow me to enter this contact person. I will save and continue for now to move on to the actual structured information. Again, it will validate, it will give me this green ribbon and the tick box, and it will show me the screens for precise scope for change and background. If you know the EF today, this is one field. We have split them as requested by our subject matter experts into two separate fields. And we have also enabled rich text edits. Today you can upload an image, you can enter an organization, or you can enter text. For this bit, you can do a little bit more. I have prepared a flowchart. For example, I'm going to copy paste this one, and then I will just copy paste it in here. I can enlarge this a little bit, and I can say, okay, this is too large. I'll make it smaller. It's too small. I can enter tables. I can put in headers, make them bold. So as this is the largest field that we receive, we thought it would be nice to have it a little bit better structured, because this is one of the benefits you have if you go web instead of PDF. The same goes for background for change. For now, I will just copy paste this to have something. I can save this at any point, close it and come back. It will tell me when this was last saved. So when I do come back, I know when this happened, on which date and on what time. And also it will ensure me that it is actually saved now. And now please bear with me. Everything up until now was normal as you know it. The change that where we have this new IDMP regulation and where we want to be IDMP compliant and use the full potential of PMS is where we say, okay, this variation is now actually changing the name and not just a free text with present, this was my name before and this is it now. Today, If you have 10 products, you just put in the free text. Yes, it is easy for the applicant, but it is complex for the regulator. They have to figure out what name change applies how and why. Maybe for name change it's easy, but if you go to more complex changes for manufacturers or any other things, mistakes can happen and we want to avoid them. So this is where Christina presented. It will take a little bit longer to fill it in. You do have to provide more information, but the data quality will be a lot better. And we are creating the basis for a new target operating model in Europe to have a full life cycle of medicinal products, where you check it out from PMS, you do your modification, and maybe not right now, but in a couple of years' time, you can actually feed this back to PMS, do the full cycle, and we always have structured information. This is one of the huge benefits of this project, and I'm very much looking forward to the day that this is actually happening. We are laying the foundation now. We do the first part. In order to do this, I am now selecting for which scope and for which product I'm doing this change. This is quite easy right now because I have exactly one product, I have exactly one scope. As you can imagine, this I am preparing for the possibility for work sharing and the possibility for grouping. For groupings, you would have many things here, many scopes, and for work sharings, you might have many products. But not only for work sharings, if I do go into central products, you can have one authorization on a central product with more than one strength. So I could have 25 milligrams here for loss of control, which would still be a CAP authorization. But if you look at PMS, and if you look at the definition of what a product is via ISO, which is name, strength, form, it says that those are two medicinal products. This is where we distinguish medicinal product and an authorization on a medicinal product. So the authorization product, as EMA likes to call it, is the whole thing, 25 milligram, 50 milligram tablets, and any other form. The medicinal product, as defined in ISO, will have multiple lines here, and for you, multiple lines to select. For now, I'm just selecting this one. I'm selecting this one scope, and I'm adding it. And now the system will look like, okay, this is an A to B scope for national products. So the product area is, in this case, it's general medicinal product, because this is where the name is kept. I would just, this is my overview page. It tells me, okay, this was the product with the MRP-CP number. This is the MA number, my authorization country. This is the exact scope with the description and the product area. I say, yes, this is the change I want to do. And it will add this change line. Now, there is a mechanism built in that I don't forget anything if I have multiple products and multiple scopes. And this is why I do get these lines here. I will now go into the detail and say, okay, what data is exactly changing? And for this purpose, I again see a summary. What was the scope? Again, only one scope. I could change the data for more than one scope at the same time. This is valuable to not have to type in too much. And the same goes for products. I can do one change for several products at the same time. Just if you have a variation for, if you move MAH, it could mean you have a work sharing with 100 products, and this would facilitate things. Now, the present value is the great benefit you get from PMS. If you have proper PMS data, imagine it is already fully cleansed and everything, you will drill down PMS in this case. This is just a view of PMS for exactly the name. And it will tell me for this MA number, this is my full product name, my country and my language, and these are the name parts. Now, up until now, we have only had the full product name and the invented name. If you look at the ISO regulation, the name parts are split into various parts. Now, 4 of these parts are for this product mentioned in PMS when I was loading this, and these 4 are displayed here. This is my present data. If I don't have present data, so if I have not cleansed my data, or if it's an empty product, it does have to be in PMS for launch, but it doesn't have to be cleansed. So it is nice if it's there and if it's correct, because it fills in my present data. If it's not there, it's not the end of the world. It does make things easier though, if it is. I don't exactly need the present data, but it is good to have it. Now, for proposed value, in this case, it is already suggesting just what it is right now. For me, the easy part would be now to either delete this and add a new name, or I can just go in and modify it. For now, I will go in. We will optimize this a little bit so the full name can actually not be changed, because we will calculate this. Again, this is a system in development, and this part was developed just a couple of weeks ago. And I will for now just change the invented name part. I could add any other name part if I wanted to. So we do have the RMS list for all name parts in here. I could add a legacy name or something. Again, we will restrict these depending on what is actually possible. For this demo, I would just go in, change lawsuit control to just lawsuit, do the update, do the submit, or submit. We'll also rename it to save, just to be a little bit more user-friendly. Also, part of the product data itself, so we have one product data screen. It contains the name. It also contains things like additional monitoring indicator. I shouldn't mess with this because my scope doesn't contain it. If I had a scope that would also have this, I would be allowed to change it. Now, the system will not stop you. You can do more changes than you should. And this is where we expect the user to actually know what he is allowed to change. So we will share this, well, the system will show the correct screen, but there might be more information on here that you should actually change. And this is where the system can't guide you everywhere. You do have to think and prepare what you actually want to change. We want to make lives easier also for regulators, but we can't take away their work. They are very important, and they still will find mistakes, of course. But we do hope that in general, the speed of variations and the validation will increase. So what I have done now is I have shown the change of one name change. We will show a little bit of more details here. What other thing I can do here is, as you know from the variation form, I can mention if there are any other applications. What we did here is that you can just put in any procedure number. But as we are very close to other EMA systems, we thought, why not integrate with the current procedure management system from EMA? We will restrict a couple of columns here, but you can select, and we will also restrict it to MEH. At the moment, you can just select any running procedure at EMA. This is not ideal, but once this is finished, it should make your lives easier as well. I'm gonna save and continue and look at the time. It is 11:30, I believe. Joris, please tell me do I have another 15 minutes?
You do.
Right. In this case, I can show you the finalization. This is just a copy from what we have today. You click your annex documents, you click your declaration, just the difference being in web and not in PDF. You enter dates by either auto-suggesting or use a date picker. You do have these new fields where it asks you if the same variation application is running in a concerned member state. This is part of the last version and the last regulation, which is new. So we added this already because we are developing against the moving target, of course. This is difficult for us, but we try to keep up to date with all the latest changes. Now, adding in this case, I can just add another variation application. I have to select, say, which medicinal product. In PDF, you have to write the product. As we are in web here, I can just select the product that I have already selected because this is the one I would change. If I were in a work sharing, I can select any product here. I can put in my procedure number. I can say the status from a drop-down and state what date. And hopefully, in general, filling this in should go a little bit faster than a PDF. Also, as we are on a cloud infrastructure here, the funny thing about this is that the more you use it, the faster it will get. And even the more users we have, the faster this will be, because this will scale automatically. From a PDF, the performance was not ideal, we know, but we do hope that this is improved here. So I can add procedure numbers, I can add all the other information. Then there is a section for proof of payment, which is not changed too much either. Just add my payment details. There are some business rules behind it. I do have this auto suggest. I have the billing address, which when this launches will be OMS mandatory. If you want to use the web form, all organizations are OMS mandatory. This is already soon enough the case for the EF, but the billing address was the one exception. And once this goes live, we have no more exceptions. There will be a reminder to create all the OMS organizations that you actually need in order to submit. We have a period where both PDF and web form will be allowed, where if in case you do have to create anything in OMS, you still have some time. Now I have entered my payment details. I can add my signatories and I can save. And I could then export it if I want to look at it in PDF form, or I can say finalize. Now finalize will render this entire rendition read-only and put it in my finalize stack. And for now, I just want to show you what happens if I click export. Now, on clicking export, several things will happen. And this is why this screen actually takes just a little bit longer. The first thing is it will not only validate this screen, but actually all screens. So it runs through the form, checks if anything is amiss, and if it is, it will mark your headers with a little red box, so you know where you have to navigate in order to correct any kind of data that is not valid. If there are validation errors, it will also tell you and ask you if you are sure you want to export the form. As regulators are not too happy if they receive applications where they already know errors are inside because missing fields are, well, required fields are missing. We do want to restrict this, but again, we are not stopping the applicant. So we're just going, I'm sorry to annoy him a little bit by asking this question, are you sure you want to export? I'm not a fan of these questions, but in this case, it is necessary, so you can go back, you can fill in the required fields that were amiss, but you can just choose to ignore this and say, well, I do want to export. Now, what happens when I export this? It will fetch the data. It will take all the data that I have filled in here once it has already validated it. But what it will do now is it will transform it into XML. And the structure of this XML is the ominous word that you have already heard, which is FHIR, which is the interchange standard for fast healthcare it's the fast healthcare interoperability standard. And it is how in the future medicinal products will be structured in XML so we can exchange them in Europe. As part of this project, we are creating the standard on how a variation procedure will be in FHIR. And together with our colleagues from PMS, we are PMS is leading the effort on creating the structure for the medicinal product itself, and we are reaping these benefits, and we're using the same structure, of course, as PMS has for this XML. Now, in this case, I have intentionally created some Fire XML errors, just so you know that there is an XML validation as well. And if you do want to, you can download these errors. This is already planning ahead, because at some point, maybe in the future, when these XMLs are not created directly from the system, you will still have a screen like this and you can download XML errors. Of course, the layperson will not be too happy with those, because XML is not a language everybody understands, but you can give it to your IT department to see what went wrong. In a normal scenario, you will never see this. All you will see is this huge download button where you can click on, which will give you a folder with a PDF. And this PDF, for now, it has some debugging information, which is of not too much interest to you because we are in the middle of a project. But it will show you this familiar screen, which is the Notice of Applicants application form for human marketing authorization variation. And this is very much the form as it is, but not editable. It is completely generated. It does have the table of contents where you can just navigate. But it will fill in everything that you have from the web form as you have just seen it. We have kept the PDF structure nearly exactly as it is today. We want to comply with the NTA form, and we also don't want to introduce too many changes with one project. Of course, we could move these things around. We are trying to cooperate with NTA as well to see if we want to change this form, but for now, let's not introduce too many changes. We'll keep the form as it is. We are just going to transform the data from the web form, which is ISO IDMP compliant, to this legacy PDF form, which can then be included in the eCDT. As you have most likely noticed, some of these things are yellow. This is, of course, not going to change. This is just for us. While we test, we know which of these fields are already implemented and have a mapping to the web form. The ones in white don't have a mapping yet, because this is still under development. We do have to finish our web form in order to finish the full PDF, and we have several teams working on this in parallel. Now, I haven't filled in too much information, so you can't see too much, but you can see there is the product in here. There are some types of changes. You see the scope is filled in, and there is not much else yet. The interesting part that you do have here, I'm sorry that this screen is very small. I would just tell you that there is an attachment section to the PDF on the left-hand side, where you can see an attachment as is called EF XML. Now what I can do is I can save this. Let me save it on, for now I'm just going to save it on my desktop. And what I can do now is I can open this XML. Now, opening an XML is not too interesting because it is an XML, but if you open this in a proper tool, and if you pretty print this, you can see it has already a couple of thousand lines. So it contains the entire medicinal product, the entire variation information. You can see it has here link to the medicinal product itself. It contains the scope. It contains not only the name of the scope, but also the RMS value, so the term IDs, what system is going to be used. So in this case, it is SPOR EMA Europa in the version 1. Lists is the RMS system and what list. And this is the case for the entirety of the XML. If I'm not going into too much detail of this XML right now, if you want to know more, I am happily inviting you to join me next week, where Veronica and I will present more information on the XML, on the structure behind it, the fire structure, how it relates between PMS and between the variation, and a few details that we will want to share with any interested software vendors, applicants, or NCAs. For now, of course, the main focus should be on NCAs because those are the ones that want to read this and import it to their systems. And in the far future, hopefully at some point, even RIM vendors will be interested in this. We will share as much information as possible as we know, even though some of it is still in development. Now, please stop me like 5 minutes before I'm running out of time. I'm not sure I can keep track of it myself. I will just use the additional time to show you some other examples.
You've got another 4 minutes, and then we'll start taking questions, Noel.
Brilliant. So, okay, for now, I will just go to application forms to see my other application forms. What I have here is another example that I have prepared, an unstructured grouped work sharing. So I can just click on edit and go back to my previous example where I have, this doesn't really make sense in reality. This is really just to show you a feature. An MRP product, a national product, and a central product in one variation. 4 types of changes. I have selected one B5A1D selection change. This is just to make sure there is going to be no structured information for it. And I have selected 2 other scopes. Well, the same scope twice, actually. Also, just to make sure that this is a random scope that guarantees me to not have any structured information. What happens here is now I go to change to my change section, and I select the change in case for grouping and work sharing. I add a detail, and I can say I want to specify 2 changes. I want to specify everything in one by selecting everything. Or I can say I want to do these 2 together for all products, for only 2 of the products, for only 1 of the product. And I can do the selection several times until I have everything covered. Now, this is also going to be our backup screen that you will see shortly. So in case anything happens, we do go live, but the absolute minimum that we go live is the free text change. Of course, we want to have the structured product change, and we will go live with it. If for some weird reason you cannot enter your structured product change because this is a new system, because there's a problem with your data, or for whatever reason, we will have this product area unstructured, which is necessary anyway for the areas that don't have structured information, that you still can change in a variation. Now for this, you can just select organizations that you want to change from OMS, or you can enter a free text change. For this, we are just giving you draggable free text changes where you can write anything you want. You can format these anyhow you want. You can copy paste this. And once you have entered one of these, you can reuse them the next time you go in for this application. Again, this is a convenience feature. So if you want to add another one, you can, okay, I have to save first, but once I have saved this, you can just click on these entered before, and it will do so.
Okay, Noel, thank you. We've had a lot of questions come in via Slido. And yes. First of all, I want to assure people that we will be indeed answering all questions, if not directly in the Q&A, then indeed in some other form. And we have a Q&A document. And I'd just like to hand over to Cristina Papato to indeed start fielding some of the questions. Just a reminder to everyone, if you have a particular question, also look if the question's already been asked, because there's so many, and the questions with more votes are the ones that we'll most likely get to in the next 10 minutes.
Thank you
Over
very
to you,
much,
Christina.
Joris. Thank you, Joris. So, okay, so now you will be able to see the Slido interface. As anticipated by Joris, we have received many questions, so we will address the top ones. As first question that received already 23 votes, we have, will an API be available to integrate DAIDY, the sponsor's RIM system for updating data? And if yes, when is this planned? So I would like Noel Diamant, our DAIDY product co-owner, to answer this. And then, of course, Christina, maybe to integrate if needed. Thank you.
Of course. So I tried to answer some of these questions already. So you will find a written response in here as well. To address Renee's question in detail, from launch, we will not have an API available to submit the DAIDY variation form. The way to get there at some point, which we do want to, is first, we do have to make sure our web interface can create this message properly, that the standard for this message is well defined, which we are working right now. The next step is that NCAs can read this message because they are the ones that need to receive it. And we need to make sure that the ones that want to import this into their IT systems can. And after this, I do imagine we have a well-established standard. And once this is the case, I will invite, well, we do invite RIM vendors to look into this into more detail. And we do planning on how and when we will be able to receive things via API. This is not an easy process to get there. Also, I understand that RIM vendors will need time. And this is also the reason why we are sharing our in-between development efforts. So next week, we are going to present how this XML will look like. Also, RIM vendors are invited there if they want to join to see what is going to happen in the future. Even though it is not going to be this year, but it will be a little bit later. Well, not later this year, but later in the future. I'm sorry, I don't really have an exact time now.
Thank you very much, Noel, for addressing this question. I think we can go to the second one. So has a stress test of DAIDY been done to test the creation of thousands of variations at the same time?
So we are doing various tests. A stress test has not been done yet. We do have planned it before going live, of course. We are not only this part, but we are also we're now setting up some measurements to see that we can actually handle 550,000 products on a screen, as this is going to be loaded for applicants in a web browser. We do want to make sure that even smaller machines can handle this load.
Thank you. Okay, so the third question is related to both DAIDY and PMS. So as DAIDY will use PMS data migrated for XAV MDP, what is the impact for marketing authorization holders if PMS data was not correctly migrated and can't be modified in the beginning?
I believe I've shown this one in my presentation. So you see the present values. If you don't have present values, these will be empty. If they are incorrect, you will have to change them in your proposed values to not send any incorrect information to the regulators. Now, of course, if you have them already cleansed, it means less work next time during the application. If you don't have them cleansed, it is not the end of the world, but clean data will result in less work.
Thank you, Noel. So the next question I will answer myself, since this is in the framework of the change management activities we are doing within the DAIDY project. So can we extract the Q&As after the meeting? For sure we will. And we are also aiming at publishing an updated Q&A document. As you may already know, there is a version already on the submission website, so an update will be done soon. Okay, next question. Will DADY come into play in variations which are not covered by the EU variations guideline, e.g. marketing authorization transfers? Christina, maybe can you answer this question?
Sure, thank you. So currently we're concentrating on the human variations form, and we will then start the work with all the other current EAFs to transfer them into the new web-based format. Once we have done that, we will look at the different procedure types which also use forms that are currently not as we know them as the interactive EAFs. This may include the transfers form, this may include pre-submission form and so forth, but this is still being discussed and will be decided at the later stage. We are aware though that, for example, the transfers are currently in some member states done using the variations form, and we are in discussions on how to ensure that this process will not be disrupted by the change from the current EAFs into DADY.
Thank you very much, Christina. So next question is, will the data cleansing be fully required, or will the correction enrichment be limited to actual regulatory activity and the scope of the variation? So maybe Noel, can you address this together with PMS colleagues?
Yes, we do not require data cleansing. So the form itself, it wants to encourage data cleansing, but not require it. The cleaner the data is, the easier it is to do applications and the faster it is for everybody. It is not a strict requirement. We will not stop you if you don't have clean data, but you will see that your own lives will get easier if you do have them.
Thank you very much, Noel. Okay, so maybe we can address the last question and then go to Pauline in order to get some feedback from the audience. So last question would be, many RIM providers and marketing authorization holders are already interested in using uploading data directly into DADY. Can you provide a roadmap for this? Christina, maybe you can address this since you presented the timeline part.
In fact, this is the same question that was our very first question answered by Noel with regards to the RIM system imports into DADY form. So just to repeat, this is not something that we will immediately provide, but we will look into it later. So we will provide further information on this at later stages of the project.
Thank you very much. So now I think it is time to get your opinion on the webinar. So I'm now launching a poll that you can join as usual via Slido with the same code to rate your satisfaction and how likely are you to recommend this webinar to appear. This will be open for some minutes, so feel free to send us your votes. Again, as anticipated before, unfortunately, we are not able to address all the questions in this session, but we will consider them, and many of them have already been replied in writing by both the DADY and PMS team. So hope this will help. Okay, so maybe
thank you, Christina.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll then indeed move to a closing of the session while we leave this the scoring up on the screen. I'd like to thank the different speakers for the presentations and the thorough demo that they gave. Also, really appreciate all the different questions that we received. We've provided answers to most of them, both live and in the Slido tool. We'll look at indeed whether it's possible indeed to either leave the Slido open or indeed extract the questions. However, one way or the other, this is important feedback to the project team, and we'll look at ways indeed to answer these questions. Some of the key ways that we'll be doing that is through news updates on the eSubmissions website, through the Q&A document, a version of which is already online, but which we expect to be updating shortly, among others, with the timeline that we showed you during this presentation. And you're always welcome indeed to also email ESUB Program Officer at ema.europa.eu with your EAF questions. We will be looking at repeat opportunities for similar webinars as we continue to develop the form to talk more about indeed DADI and its interrelation with PMS and ISO IDMP. And as we get closer to both the UAT and the launch of the variations web form, and there'll be more communications as well as training opportunities. So this will certainly not be the last that you hear of us. With that, I'd like to wish everyone a great afternoon and a great rest of their week.